Hello, everyone. This is Alan Natachu, and welcome to today's session, AI, Its Potential and Its Burden. With me, I have some really awesome panelists joining us today, and I'd like to introduce Chris, Bela, Devin, and Michael. Before we continue, can we have you talk a little bit about yourselves? So we'll start with Chris.
Hi, everyone. My name is Chris. I'm a 54. I can't even say it, maybe. I'm a 54-year-old white female. I have graying blonde hair. My pronouns are she and her, and I am wearing a gray sweater thing with kind of cougar, I don't know, some animal print. And my background is full of books because I am a bookaholic.
All right, Bela, you're next.
Hello, everyone. I'm Bela Gaytan. I use she, they pronouns. Visual description, I'm a light-skinned Latino woman with short, dark, curly hair. I have tattooed sleeves, wearing a cream-colored top with palm trees. I have to look down because I never remember what I have on. And then a soothing sage green background with plants. I am currently in Cherokee land, so-called Chattanooga, Tennessee area, originally from Potawatomi land. And professionally, I am an instructional designer, DEIA practitioner, diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility. And so thankful for Alan hosting this because I love AI. So I will pass it over to Michael.
Hey everyone, Na'oe Sudentia. My name is Michael Sheyashe, a member of the Caddo Nation. I will describe myself as what everybody can see, which is just beautiful. I'm a Native American male originally from Oklahoma, living in Albuquerque, New Mexico, member of the Caddo Nation. My last name Sheyashe means little boy, and I am technologist and founder of Alternative Media, or A&M.
Have to interrupt. Where in Oklahoma are you?
I moved from the Oklahoma City area to Albuquerque, New Mexico. So I've washed it off of me. I've taken several showers, yes.
Okay, Oklahoma City area for me. I'm now in the Tulsa area, so yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Devin.
No, I love the connecting. Hi, y'all. My name is Devin Torres. I am a light-skinned biracial Black woman. I am wearing glasses, and my natural hair is up in a ponytail. I'm wearing a headset and a gray Brooklyn shirt. My background is blurred in my bedroom because I am actively avoiding my toddler right now as she does her own thing so I can be here. I am a curriculum developer with 280 Group. I have a freelance e-content business, and I am also a member of Black and L&D, and I head their research and community development efforts.
I didn't say mine. I'm the CEO of D3 Training Solution, or the founder. I've been in the field for I'd rather say the year, since 98, doing instructional design, and started doing distance learning or e-development back in 2000-ish. So, and especially as accessibility too.
And I'm Alan Natachu. I'm Native American male, wearing 2 long braids, a red shirt, and a beaded necklace that has turquoise, red, and white beads on it. And my background is blurry because my office is kind of a mess. So it'll be blurred for a while. All right. Thank you, everyone. So we'll go ahead and get started. We'll start off with a couple of warm-up questions, and then we'll go into some of the deeper questions that you could take a little bit more time. And if time permits, at the end, we'll have a Q&A from our audience. All right. So first warm-up question, short 1-3 sentence answers. Think of a problem that you are facing. How could AI help you solve this problem? We'll start with Devin.
Very short answer, capacity.
Michael.
I will try to keep it short, but just basically generating ideas or, sort of mix and match things I might not have thought of, and then using that in my own stuff. So,
Bela.
So for mine, I guess it's twofold, and I'll try to be quick because I never am. Job search. So trying to analyze cover letters and doing resume optimization compared to the job description. And the other one would be getting my own business moving a little bit quicker and just using ChatGPT to help with things like, how do I email people to tell them about my business and stuff like that?
Right. And
And
Chris.
I will go really building up on what they have actually doing a proposal right now. And so, I'm almost done. So I'll take it and stick it in ChatGPT to see. So for verbiage, but also to come up with ideas, shortcuts, some of that creativity. It's a great tool. And I think that's how we need to look at it, as a tool.
Excellent. All right, we're almost done with the warm-up round. Next question: what are some data points that could be pulled from using AI in L&D? So we talked about tools. Now we're talking about the data. What can be used? Let's go backwards order. Chris, you start.
Well, and this one I haven't tried using it, so I'm not really sure. But to think of it is, it's searching through the whole internet. So I think we just plug your questions in, it'll pull the information. I think our biggest challenge is we have to make sure that we are going back and making sure that information is accurate, because as we all know, the internet isn't 100% correct.
All right. Bela.
Yeah, so that was one of my things as well, was just accuracy, just making sure that the information is correct. I think it would also be really useful to collect DEIA data from what ChatGPT or whatever tool is giving us. So if it's giving a scenario of a person, how many times is it choosing someone who's male? How many times is it choosing someone who's Black? How many times, does it like give an example with someone who's disabled? And just kind of, because with that stuff being factual, I think it gets really tricky when you try to analyze qualitative data in terms of using AI as a tool. And then in terms of learners, I think it would be really helpful to analyze their feedback, their pain points, or how the AI that was implemented into the learning solution was helpful for them.
Excellent. Michael.
I thought you were going to call on me, darn it. So, I like many others, I haven't really delved into the data side, but one thing that occurred to me is and I know we think demographics and data and that sort of stuff, but the actual data I'm pulling from. So when I'm creating something, I may need my best approximation of what the verbiage I think should be, but I can always use ChatGPT or Bard to go, hey, explain this concept, this difficult concept for me in a way that a child would understand. Mm-hmm. And I can compare and contrast my version of that and make sure that, we're still kind of on target, or beg, borrow, and steal from that as needed.
So currently I'm using it to pull a lot of demographic and learner data, but I want to see the barriers. I want to see when people are going through my stuff, where they're getting stuck and what that pattern actually looks like. I haven't had a full chance to do it yet, but I'm interested.
Excellent. Right. Thank you, everyone. And I'm in the Q&A session. I need to pull up the first question. Devin, can you help me out with that? Okay. The question for the group is, how can AI be used to enhance accessibility and inclusion for individuals with disabilities?
I'm happy to hop in on this one. Being disabled by several different conditions. For context, I have neurodivergence, I have ADHD, borderline personality disorder, and likely autism. And in terms of physical disabilities, I have a lot of mobility impairments with my hands, neck, just everything, basically every joint in my body gives me problems. So one thing that AI helps a lot for me as someone who's a disabled learner, let's start with neurodivergence. A lot of times I may not understand something in writing, and I will go into like ChatGPT, and I will paste the content in there and say, can you break this down into more plain language, or can you break this down into like a much more condensed version of what it's trying to say? This is really helpful, like when I'm looking at research and academic writing, because sometimes that's just like reading a completely different language. I also use AI to help me take notes. And when I'm writing my content, I will run it through there, because I do ramble even in writing. And I will say, hey, is there any other logical way I might want to, rewrite this article? Or can you tell me if there's anything in my article that, I can make more clear and more concise for folks? In terms of my physical disabilities and being able to make a more accessible environment for me, um, it saves me a lot of time if I can put an idea into ChatGPT, my own idea, and just say, hey, can you help me build a paragraph about this? Some people might look at that and think, well, then you're not writing it. Well, I'm not going to just take it and copy and paste it. Then I'm able to just kind of like say, oh, I'm going to add my own bit of flair in here. And I have saved my hands a lot of, extra movements because at the end of the day, I get to a point where I just can't use my hands anymore. And I'm done. I'm absolutely spent. So it's been really helpful to help me in that way.
All right. Thank you, Bela. Anyone else like to chime in?
I can jump in on this one. So like Bela said, just reducing cognitive overload is a big one, right? We can get it in a clearer way. Obviously captioning and the visualization piece, but even in in-person learning, for me, I was in K-12 for a while and a lot of my students had AAC devices. So that's the voice, right? Like that was their voice. And so making sure we do have the ability for people to communicate if you're not able to type something in, right? Being able to verbalize it is much easier for me as a person too. So that's been beneficial.
Excellent. So we'll move on to the next question. How can AI-powered analytics provide insights to L&D professionals to enhance curriculum design and improve retention?
Well, I actually ran this one through ChatGPT. And ChatGPT says things like data collection and analysis, personalized learning paths, identifying learning gaps, real-time feedback, predictive analysis, content recommendation, adaptive assessment, continuous improvement, natural language processing, or NLP for feedback, and data-driven decision-making. Because I wasn't sure the answer.
I'm not sure the answer either, but I'll jump in. And so one thing that occurred to me is exactly what you're talking about, Chris, and someone else mentioned the demographics as well, right? Is, looking at whatever the content may be, and I'll use YouTube as an example because most of us are familiar with YouTube, and you can get analytics on where the outliers are and that, where people stop watching. So if we can look at our content from a L&D perspective of understanding, 87% of the participants stopped listening or stopped watching or stopped consuming the information at wherever that is, I can look and go, is that accessible? Is there a reason? Is it not functional? Is it not operable? Those sort of accessibility questions as well. So knowing where the problem is will help us maybe sort of find and dive down deeply into where the solution might be.
I love using ChatGPT as a tool, and I love how it's being brought up over and over again here because, yeah, it is a real good tool. And anyone else want to chime in on this question? Yeah, it's a big one. Well, for me, I think of, I do a lot of digital accessibility and I love working with documents. So things like making automated tests easier and more accurate. Right now, the accuracy is kind of low for automated tests, and I still have to go through and manually get things corrected. But I'm hoping that in the future, that will speed up the process a lot. All right, next question for everyone. What are the potential implications of using AI to create accessible digital content, and how can we make sure it remains inclusive and user-friendly?
I'll hop in with a personal experience here. I've been redoing several of my websites. I may be considered an expert in accessibility, but I'm constantly learning. And as someone that's colorblind, I'm usually pretty good with color contrast, but I noted on some of the sites that I own, the color contrast was not sufficient. So I wanted to take my brand colors and I put them into ChatGPT. I said, here are the brand colors. I gave the hex codes and I gave each one a name as well. I said, please give me a table that lists the different color combinations that I can use in terms of what is the background color and what is the foreground color. In this case, it would be text. And I asked to go by the WCAG guidelines, which are I forget what WCAG stands for. Someone can help me in chat, but it's the basically the level, the ratio of color contrast that is required in order to be considered either AA or AAA accessible. It spit out a perfect table. And I was like, oh, wow, this is awesome. This is epic. And then I got to one of the lines and I thought, no, I cannot put this dark blue color on the red background. And I went and checked, and most of it was not even correct. So I ran it through several more times. I said, no, I need it to be like WCAG, compliant. And I need to know like what comedy. It just kept doing the same thing. And it would change a couple of the colors here and there, but it was still putting like dark colors together. And I just sat there staring at the screen like, well, what else can I ask it? What else can I do? And it was just drawing incorrect, assumptions, which was really strange for me because there's tools out there that quickly analyze the ratio of contrast between the colors and tell you whether it's like compliant or not. And I gave the hex codes, and it was just, it was really strange. And I think the biggest problem in that is a lot of us, like Devin said, we're using this to help with like time and just, stuff like that and productivity. If we're not going and checking every bit of data that's being given to us by AI, that is really dangerous because, it may sound like it's true. It may seem good. It may look good, but if we're putting out false data, then how many other people are going to take that data and run with it and continue to just spread, false information?
Yeah, and to spin off that, another personal story, I asked ChatGPT to write a bio on me. I thought, okay, information is a couple years old inside of ChatGPT. I have a pretty significant, I think, footprint online. So I asked it, hey, write me a bio. It said that I was a master jeweler in the era of the 60s and 70s and silversmith. Those are my uncles, not me.
Well,
So
I want to take this too, and it's interesting because yes, I come up as a male because there are many male Chris Paxtons. The challenge and has an accessibility, and I hate to use the term expert because again, constantly learning about this, and it's constantly evolving. Is we have to realize that WCAG is a guideline. It's not set in stone. This is what you must do. They're very somewhat vague guidelines for us to use. And we really need to go back to understanding who our audience is and what their individual needs are, whether we're doing WCAG A, AA, or AAA. The other thing I always want to challenge everyone is that please, there's a lot of accessibility tools out there, yes. A human is so much better than the tools. I have had challenges where I'm discussing with a actual DHS trusted tester, and they're telling me that, what I'm doing isn't meeting. And I'm like, okay, did you run it through the screen reader? Did you see? Well, no, I ran it through, I think it's called ADI, A-D-I, or something like that, the tool that they learn to use with DHS trusted testing. And they're like, it gave me this report. And I'm like, okay, let's get a time one-on-one. Let's run it through a screen reader. And I use NVDA. And let's see how it works. And sure enough, they're like, oh, okay, yes, I will let that pass. So as you all are hosting about that, definitely. It's the floor, versus the ceiling. And, we've got to have those humans involved. It scares me to think about just depending on AI to do that. The other is there's all kinds of articles out there about AI is not inclusive. If you run through things, it is always a white male, it's just, it categorizes and it's got biases built in there. So it definitely needs to be reviewed by humans so we can make sure, that we can take it and make it right. Sorry, I get excited.
It's all right. I like to ask, was the image generators, AI image generator? I was asking, okay, what's a Native American? It's always in the 1800s, buckskin, long hair, uh, you know, in the plains, out in the Wild West. It wasn't giving anything really current. So yeah, the data sets do need to be updated and diversified to include people like us.
Yeah, Jewish people, we all have giant noses and frizzy hair.
All right, so I'm gonna move on to the next question. Let's see, what's the next question? Where are we at? Okay. Can AI-driven recommendations and personalized interfaces effectively cater to a wide range of accessibility preferences? What challenges might arise?
I can jump. Oh, go ahead, Michael.
Oh, go ahead. Mine's just anecdotal. Please, Devin.
Okay, so it kind of falls to what everybody just said about using it to create digital content. I think it solves in a lot of ways because it can collect a lot of content quickly and spit it out in a way that we're asking it. The problem with that is we're looking at a wide range of accessibility preferences, right? I have multiple accessibility preferences. A lot of it, we're individuals at the end of the day. So trying to solve even something as broad as accessibility, trying to solve for specific need is really difficult when, like Chris said, it's a machine. It thinks in a certain code. It thinks in this kind of binary way to solve a problem, but it's multiple layers, right, with that. So I think it's good in the sense that, hey, it can spit out a solution, but is that solution effective to each individual necessarily? Rarely have I seen it work that way.
Yeah, and mine wasn't an actual point. I was just saying, the question itself, like, what can we do to effectively, make accessibility and those that need accessibility technology, more effective. As we talk about, we're simply talking about a set of tools called AI at this point. It's been around for a while, but now we're having more readily available tools. So within that, as I think someone else was mentioning, we have to be careful about that. We have to use common sense, and Alan, I know you mentioned the art. So, from an art perspective, sometimes something as simple as generating a nice image, if you will, via AI, but it has 3 thumbs or 14 fingers or something that, as a human, we've like, oh, that doesn't make sense. But that's the understanding. We have to either tame the tool down to where it understands, hey, we're human and we need more inclusivity and accessibility, or we have to make sure like, oh, that one's not going to work because that, they have 12 fingers. So that kind of thing.
Michael, have you seen the outputs from people eating pizza or people eating spaghetti?
I've seen this spaghetti one, like a 4 shot of it, but I've only seen one of them. So
It's nightmare fuel. So stay away.
Like mouths are like straight. Yeah. So
let's see. Any other people like to answer this question or chime in? Going once, going twice. All right. So next question. What role can AI play in fostering continuous learning and upskilling, particularly in industries undergoing rapid technical transformation?
I'll just recycle what I said earlier. So I use Bard and ChatGPT a lot to understand concepts. So I've been watching a lot of TED Ed videos, the educational videos, and so they have a lot of like string theory and particle theory. And sometimes I'll ask ChatGPT or Bard to explain these really hard for me concepts in an easier manner. And so that's one reason I like it. As far as the role, again, we keep talking about tool, but the idea of going, hey, I know these ideas are out here. At one point in time in my history, I didn't consume them as well as I could. Let's go revisit that and see if a fresh perspective on that with fact checking can actually help. So yeah.
I love to see AI and AR merge. I know there's some really great advances in AR that will allow people to, scan a workplace. And then the most brilliant example I saw was networking. They can scan the area of a network. They can pull up AR information about each individual port, what to do if that port's not working, what that port goes to, where that port sends out. It was really great, and I'm looking forward to more of that, where you could scan something in the workplace and it'll give you instructions on how to repair it or how to take care of it. So
Well, there's some really neat. I haven't tried it in the alternative reality AR, but I know Scenario VR, which is who I use for virtual reality. I can actually plug in, give me a basic office, give me this, and it will create again those images for me that are 360, so I don't have to necessarily go out and get those images. So that can be handy.
I think another thing with this, like I keep talking about capacity and speed, but tell me what I need. So sometimes I'm looking for professional development or I'm looking for something to improve and I don't really know where to go. Like the other day I was looking at stuff. I kind of want to get an engineering cert, right? And I don't know where to look because I'm limited to virtual education. And so it was easy to type into a form and then it spits a bunch of stuff at me. So then I'm doing less research with the limited time I have. And then just in general with being able to upskill in a way that's comfortable. So being able to upskill from my house, not having to get on a plane and travel, not having to sit in a traditional classroom because it's stressful for me. Being able to do those things with AI and learn at my own pace, right, has been really beneficial.
Sorry, it's Friday. This is my first cup of coffee. I feel like I'm slacking as a moderator. Sorry, people. That was a great answer, Devin. And rapid technological transformation, that is a real key term because things are advancing so fast. Like we've been using AI for a long time. Hey Siri, hey Google, that's AI. That's recognizing our voice, that's giving us an answer, giving us a response back. But now we're getting into creating worlds with AI, creating novels with AI, just really blowing things up.
Not exactly, but I offer no resistance to helpful
I
assistance.
don't know if you heard that, but I just called Siri. All right, so we'll move on to our next question. What potential pitfalls should be avoided when relying on AI to make decisions about learners' educational paths or career trajectories?
I'd love to answer. Oh, someone
Okay.
else started. Go ahead.
I was just probably going to say very much because it's very much what everyone has said is that we can't depend. AI is gathering data, okay, but it doesn't have the empathy, the emotional buy-in. I think Dawn just wrote that for I'm going to actually almost quote Dawn here with those meaningful interactions. It is, and what we're seeing out there, and what I posted on someone with worrying about because we hear so much, is it going to replace us? Is it going to do this? There is no intellectual property or copyright involved in AI at this moment. And I can't see that happening because, again, it's just gathering information from the internet. And so I think as long as we use it as a tool kind of to set our base down, but realize it doesn't have the empathy and it doesn't know people and know their needs and their desires and where their heart is and where their passion is, which I think is very important. I'll pass it on to Bela.
Yeah, those are really great points, Chris. I think, that's the big thing is who determines what a learner's educational path or career trajectory should be, right? So I'll give you an example using myself. I've been in instructional design for, I think, 2 years. And a lot of times when I've gone into interviews, or I get like the annual or, quarterly reviews when I'm in a role, where do you see yourself in 1 year? And my answer is always better instructional designer. Maybe I've pursued a few certifications or, and I leave it at that. And they're like, what about leadership? What about management? And I'm like, don't want it. I just want to be an instructional designer. That's what I want to do. And I think also there's this huge expectation that people need to do a specific career trajectory. They need to go through a certain path that Robert and John did, so everybody else needs to do it, right? And I think having that and that's widespread, right? We tell kids, oh, you're going to go to college. Why? Why does someone have to go to college? Not everybody needs to go to college. Not everybody wants to go to college. Not everybody is going to excel in college. We still need people doing trades. We need people doing service-based industries and stuff like that. And so I think it's harmful if we're relying on AI to give suggestions. What is it going to be based on, right? I mean, is it going back to what Alan said about when he tried to do the bio and it was like you're a jewelry maker from the 60s and 70s and stuff. So what if he went in and it's being biased based on the fact that he is Indigenous American and that his uncle did the turquoise thing, and it said, well, you should work at a market selling jewelry. That's your career trajectory, right? It's biased based on the information that it pulled up. It didn't take into account what does Alan want to do? What does Alan currently do? So I think it's really dangerous when we get into these where we let AI try to make decisions about these, I don't know how to call them. Maybe someone can help me, like societal norms or expectations about, like progressing through the, climbing up the career ladder and stuff like that. I just think it's really dangerous when we let AI be able to make those types of decisions,
I have a couple of area pitfalls I want to discuss. I'll be brief about one and a little bit longer about the other. The first is, I know we keep talking about the tools and what they give back as far as what they produce out for us, but I'm willing to be wrong, by the way. I'm always reserving the right to be wrong or incorrect, but from what I've read of both Bard and ChatGPT, I would suggest being careful of what you put in, making sure not to share any private information. Whatever you type in as questions or queries or starting points is being used to reanalyze and go back into the churn. Again, someone call me out on that, but that's what I read, at least in the EULA, if you will, the user agreement. So the other one I want to mention, and we kind of danced around this, but I also, part of my world has to do with artistic and creativity, which is I find fun and cool. So I get to do comic book stuff. So a recent event that just occurred, San Diego Comic-Con, they had to remove somebody from the vendor alley, artist alley, because they were selling AI produced art only. Now, I'm not getting into the pros and cons of that. What I want to suggest is, as human beings, whether we're using that tool or not, I think it's important that we are able to discern, oh, this looks like something fantastically created and, like Alan was saying, nightmare fuel of spaghetti eaters, right? What's the difference, and how can we make sure that someone isn't just cutting corners and like I've seen in the chat earlier, writers and artists and those that are being creative and are really being creative, not using the tool, but those that are only using the tool for their own advances or their own career, making money kind of thing. So just a couple of areas to be careful about.
Yeah. And I just want to jump in. The same thing that everybody has said, the output is obviously can be worrisome, right? And I work in data and I work in assessment, and they'll show you the bell curve that's here, and then we're ignoring this data here, and we ignore this data here, and those pieces of data have significant gaps, right, where we should be looking, and we miss that sometimes with the output. But even like Michael just said, the things we put in impact what other people are getting out. I've seen so many times where I'm like, oh, I want to do some comparison data, and I want to do it for any type of organization, like as a minority, and I pull it and I'm like, it's harmful, right? Like it's harmful data. And I know that we all go into this creation process in L&D to not cause harm, but unfortunately some data can cause harm. Doesn't mean that the people who are putting it in mean to, but the way it's output does. And so I think being cautious of that, making sure we are reviewing it and thinking of who you're delivering for, right? Will this data that is unregulated cause harm? And so
that brings up an age-old question. Being Native American, we are studied a lot, and we got ethnographers, people who study cultures, come into our space and write about what's happening in our space, but from their point of view, and therefore the information that they present to other people is wrong or not wholly there. So yeah, this is actually an age-old battle. And yeah. I think everyone has. Anyone else want to speak on this? 3, 2, 1. Okay. All right. Thank you, everyone. We're going to open it up to audience Q&A in a moment, but first I want to ask one cool down question. Again, short answers only. And dream. I just want you to just dream big. What is something you want AI to do for you?
I'll go, and it's probably because, again, I love books. I like the research. I wish it would cite, and it would tell me where it's pulling that information from.
I would love to follow that up quickly, and I'll try to be quick. I did an experiment in ChatGPT, and I wish I would have did like a screen recording of it, but I gave it very specific parameters about providing me just a reference list of different, peer-reviewed research papers based on, I don't know, let's say Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I don't know. And I told it what years to choose and everything like that. Boom. I get APA, formatted. I'm like, man, this is epic. All 10 of those sources that it cited were make-believe. The DOI, which for those who don't know, I don't know what DOI stands for, but it's like a permanent link to a research paper. They all link to other stuff. I would search. I mean, I spent an hour just trying to find one, looking through like the resource, the library I still have through my college that I went through, and just searching for like the authors and stuff. It was all fabricated. 100% of those sources were fabricated. And I think that's the same thing that happened with Bard the first day it went live, didn't it? Give like a completely false. Yeah. And I was just like, how terrifying is that? And especially for, people that are learning how to use AI and they don't think to go look that stuff up. And they're just, adding it in there. Like, I'm going to add that in there. I didn't look at it, but I'm going to add it in there. But it's just, to me, that was terrifying. So like, I just wish, building off what Chris said, that the citations were actually accurate and not make-believe and fantasy.
Since we're going pie in the sky, I will admit that my mental operating system probably is more akin to, say, like Windows 3.2 rather than, say, Unix or Linux or Windows current operation system. So I would love to get to the point where I can augment some of my own personal information and empirical knowledge with AI. Now, again, sounds very Matrix-like, and I'm not talking about jacking into the system or anything, but just something it would be, good, especially, Bela, if we had the idea that these were discernible, authentic, authoritative sort of information and not just junk, because I can get that off YouTube. So.
Yeah, I said it before, I want to know the gaps. So I want to know when I'm doing something, where am I going to get stuck? Where are people getting stuck? For example, I would love personally for AI to give me the best affordable tickets to all these concerts that are highly expensive and not have to experience the Taylor Swift phenomenon, which I didn't. My sister did. But I want to see where I'm going to get stuck so I can prep accordingly, right? I want it to save me. I want it to save a barrier. I want it to be a removed barrier.
And Luis, go ahead, pop on. Don't have to ask, just do it.
Because remember, you run this place.
Yeah, this is yours.
Thanks. This whole conversation, I'm just like glued because, well, actually not glued because I did want AI to do something. And I think for everyone that might be in the Slack channel, that I wanted to put together an event called AI Labs. And so while we're doing this, I'm like, I better set that thing up. And so I picked the dates and I went into AirMeet and I started just like building this thing out. And this was just like the last 20 minutes. And yes, I used AI to generate a lot of the content for this thing. And I'm going to open up registration on Monday. And so this isn't something I planned beforehand. This is something that I'm like, I'm just going to do this right now. So you can actually go to that link and you'll see that's the landing page. And I just built that using ChatGPT. I got suggestions for image ideas and assets. And then, I have access to Canva and some other places where I grabbed whatever images I needed. And then color schemes, palettes, all of that. I got recommendations for that. And then the actual summary, I typed in, this is what I wanted the event to be about. I'm going to be doing this. I'm going to be doing that, just all these things. And then it just kind of, it collected all of that and then wrote a description for me. So that's pretty impressive. And that is something I'm very excited about. Now, I do want to say one thing, a lot of QA questions. So is it okay if I help you with that, Alan, with the QA questions that are in there? So I'll help with the QA questions. I want to ask you, especially since the group of you are all creatives, to me, in my, when I look at you, I know, like, Devin, you work with tools. Alan, I mean, duh. Michael, come on, you sound like a Comic-Con panelist already. Bela and Chris, you guys both, web developers and artists. But do you ever feel like you're the thing? I love that guy. Do you ever feel like you're cheating when you're using ChatGPT or AI in your work?
I'll jump into that real quick. So I have used it to have a starting place to generate some Python code for myself. And then I had to troubleshoot it, as you're talking about. There was some discrepancies, but it was a great place to start where I didn't have to just be a code monkey and pound it out. So again, I like it for certain rules. I don't necessarily feel that I'm not using it in a way that's ethical because, again, I make sure I understand the pain points of artists and other creatives as well. So.
I started, when I first started using it, it was like, oh, I shouldn't, it's taking shortcuts. People are paying me to do these certain things. And then I realized, it's kind of like when Wikipedia first started. It's a tool we have to go through and verify. My students should never quote Wikipedia, but go down and look at the citations and see where they went through. I have also, and I wanted to point out because someone mentioned it, I did a session and I needed a dog wearing a backpack and hiking shoes looking at a map. Can't find a picture of this out there. So had AI generate it. Finally had one where the dog didn't have his leg backwards and things and used it. But it was one I definitely let the client know, okay, this is an AI generated image. And they're like, okay, that's fine. I was like, we may want to do a disclaimer on there. I would feel more comfortable if we did. But I definitely wanted to let you all know. But yeah, at first I did, but I think as long as we realize it's a tool.
Yeah, I'd love to hop in really quickly. I've never felt like I've been cheating when I use ChatGPT, and the moments that it's given me content where I feel like, oh, this is not me, like this is a robot doing something for me, then I'm just like, okay, I'm not going to use that. So as an example, I'm throwing a link in the chat. When I was building my Yep, you're there. When I was building my co-working page for my website, I had a very specific idea of what my dream office would look like. I was like, it would be in the style of like a Frida Kahlo painting. And it would be with a window overlooking a beautiful Mexican village with like a mountain in the background. And it did pretty damn good, right? But when I use the image, because I did it in DALL-E, I keep the little, if you've used DALL-E before, it has that little like color, like a bunch of colored squares at the bottom, I guess, to indicate that it's AI. I kept that. And when I did my image description for that page, I included that this was an AI image that I generated. And I put my prompt in there because I want it to be very clear that I did not create this. I wish I was that talented, but this is what I created. This is what my vision of it was for. And, that's that.
Love it. Love it. All right. Yeah. And when it comes down to it, when I use AI, at first I felt a little guilty because I wasn't staying up until 1 a.m. building the newsletter that I send out on Mondays. Now I'm only up until 11:30, and so I've almost felt like I was cheating. But it really does help me so much, and it's just helping me with ideas and putting things together because it's still, I'm a human and I'm trying to help other humans. And that's the main thing for me. All right, let's get to some of these questions because like Stacy Kraft has been in there posting some great questions. And this one is the highest upvoted one so far. Let's see if we can stump our panel here. What strategies do you recommend for navigating the inherent bias that seems baked in generative language AI models? Let's see. Actually, Alan, why don't we start with you, since you are the host of this
All
wonderful
right.
talk.
We need to be in the room where the decisions are happening, because AI is great. It can get a lot of data, spit out something for you that you can use. But if it's wrong, you need that human eye to look and see, okay, this is off the wall. This isn't working. So, I've been in this industry for a while and only recently been really trying to get out there and share content, just because uh, I love to share and I want to be in that room and say, hey, no, this isn't going to work because this is uh, blah, 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 or yo, stay away from that. That's kind of racist. Or, have that kind of eye, that kind of point of view. So, yeah, we need to be in the room. Still
That's
a human
great.
connection.
Yeah, no, totally agree. Bela, what do you think?
Yeah, in chat I said preach brother Alan, because that was just, we need to be in the room. I mean, as the same way with our panel yesterday, nothing without us, right? When we're talking about, disabled folks and everything, like, we need to be at the table. We need to be in the room making those decisions. And for anyone who missed the links that I put into the chat, after this session, I'll put them on LinkedIn if you're connected with me. But Jeremy Andrew Davis recently did a video, actually 2 of them. And one of them, they showed where they went through, I think it's, what is it called? Mid-journey. I don't use anything about DALL-E. I think it's Mid-journey or Mind Journey or something. And they wanted to give an image of an autistic person. I think they ran it through, and like out of 140 something of the results, there was, I think they were all male presenting. They were all white. They all looked sad and kind of like what's the word? Like tired and just, like just almost sickly, right? And so Jeremy did a video on that, and the comments of the people defending AI and saying, no, it's not biased. No, it's not, that's just blah, blah, blah. So Jeremy did a follow-up video using the comments, because if you don't follow Jeremy, y'all need to. Like, they are amazing. And they do videos with, like, where they will be, themselves, and then the other person will be one of the other personas, that they portray. But it's just, people were defending it. They were like, there's nothing wrong with all white men being, the result of this. And Jeremy's like, so you don't think that's racist? You don't think, like, oh, well, it's going based on people's perceptions, not data. Well, pretty sure AI should be going by the data that's available, right? I mean, it was just, it blew my mind. But yeah, I just think that we need guardrails in place. We need boundaries. We need, and I don't know who's going to be the organization or association that tries to step in and does that, because a lot of that is also like, well, whose morals or whose ideals are we going to be catering to? And it's just, I don't know. It's scary. But I think, bottom line, I forget who said it, but just like the human connection, right? Like 100% humans need to still be in there, and it needs to be diverse humans. It doesn't need to be, a room full of, straight cis white dudes. Like, we need, diversity in the people that are making these decisions.
Totally. And the second question, second most upvoted right now, it works along the same lines. And so I'm gonna ask some of the other panelists about it. But this one is from Jessica Bustamante Moreno. Scientists Joy Bulamwini and Kathy O'Neill have talked a lot about bias in AI algorithms. As a person who falls into multiple minority groups, including being part of the disabled community, I wonder, how can we address these issues when we use AI? And I can tell you, just from personal experience, one time I loaded a series of photos up into an AI engine to create some, personal avatars. I just want to test it out. I think I even paid like $10 to do it. And they were terrible. They came up as like, because I am Filipino, full-blooded Filipino, and all the results were somebody that definitely looked different than I did, like on the eye side and all kinds of stuff. So I was like, wow, AI needs some work. But let's start, Devin, with you, because I know that you're of mixed race as well. Do you have any response to this?
Yeah, I actually wanted to just kind of call out, Stacy said it in the chat, check our own biases as we're utilizing it. Like Erica Badu said, the man who knows something knows he knows nothing at all. And I fully believe that. We're all still learning, right? So we all have these inherent biases. If you were at the data event last year, you heard me say, who wrote math, right? So we just have to kind of check our own knowledge. But yeah, as a person who's biracial, I've used, like you just said, those like image generators or just any type of AI generator based on physicality. And I'm always Puerto Rican. And contrary to popular belief, my husband is Hispanic, my daughter is Hispanic, I am not. So there's just a lot of times when it's like, you hear it all the time in real life and you kind of brush it off, but you realize those are real biases, or you have your own personal stuff. So you're plugging in a prompt and you don't think about accessibility. You don't think about inclusion. And it's not something that you can bake in at the end either. So I think as we're using these AI tools and just AI in general, making sure we're using it at the right place, making sure that we are incorporating into how we build and design things the whole time, not just saying, okay, it's the end, I'm going to plug in to ChatGPT or any AI software and get my accessibility covered. That's not going to work. And especially if we don't have a good way to regulate and check it.
There. I don't think that's me. That's strange. Okay.
Somebody's not muted, and I think that's what's picking up.
Sorry, I'll mute myself.
Oh, it's okay.
All right, we don't have much time left, but I do want to ask Michael, because you're an artist, and I don't know if you've ever used AI to generate any artwork whatsoever, but do you have a take on this that you can share?
Yeah, so I'll just be fully transparent. I have really kind of stayed away from the generative art AI stuff. Again, there's very strong opinions in my particular community of comic book world about it, so I tend to stay away from it. But just at the question at hand, the one thing I'd like to talk about, and Alan kind of mentioned this as well, like, understanding we need to tell our own stories. Who do I mean we, by the way? And I tend to think of these things as, whether it's a minority, whether it's an underrepresented community, whether it's a marginalized populace, we need to understand why it's that way and understand how we can further educate and train whatever the AI tool is to understand not only the bias, but how we can nuance that. For instance, if we have someone with low visibility and we ask for information back, or we have AI generate something, it needs to understand what low visibility is, or whatever we're defining at that moment. So for me, understanding the human portion of why we're not represented or why we're not, why we're marginalized in some ways might help us explain how to overcome that marginalization or that difference. So that's kind of what I want to see with AI, is making sure that, as Alan said, not only being in the room, but understanding either how we can nuance it or train it for our own use, or again, from the populace, like the global use of it, how can we train it better?
I love it. Okay, and Chris, I want to give you a chance at this one too.
Oops. Sorry, I was still muted. Again, I think it always falls back to, no matter what, keep the human in it, because, and it goes back to, again, I think everybody has said this in some way, shape, or form, nothing about us without us. So we need to, I've worked, again, being in Oklahoma, but I also worked for Cherokee Nation for 8 years, and has a white person, one of the first things, and I thought this was amazing, they had us do was go through a 40-hour Cherokee history course, which was just really cool. And it just, the biases are there. Bias is natural. We need to figure out how to get in to where we can correct some of the stuff, the data, and I have no idea how to do that, but then just take it and realize and put the human into it.
I love it. Love it. Now we're out of time. I kind of want to just wrap things up. I want Alan to have some final words on this before I close it out. But I do want to. I just have this observation about this panel and just the fact that the group of us are minorities talking about ANI and LND, and I think that that's really unique. I think it's really fascinating, and also the QA, the questions that are still left that would like to be answered. Are generally from folks that are also minorities. And so I am going to, for the event that is going to come up next month, we'll try to have a track on that, because I think that is something within this community that, because as a person of color, that has always been my goal, is, from the beginning of TLDC, to make sure that it's open to everybody, that everybody has some sense of belonging within this particular community, which is different from most of the others that I were a part of prior. So I think that that's going to be an important part of the conversation that takes place next month. And so with that, Alan, I want to give you the last word, and then we're going to close out the session.
All right. Thank you, everyone. I'd like to thank my guests for appearing on the panel, Chris, Michael, Bela, and Devin. And if you have, let's keep this discussion going. We got tables. We can meet up there and keep talking. And find us on LinkedIn. We could continue the conversation there. And I just want to wish everyone a great morning, afternoon, wherever you're at, and be kind to each other.
Awesome. Thank you
Thanks,
so much,
everybody.
Alan, and everyone. Much love.
All right. Please,
Thank
everybody,
you.
join at noon Pacific time, 3 p.m. Eastern. We're closing out the event. Jessica Michaels, who's a learning partner with Adobe, is going to be here to talk about neurodivergence in L&D. And so closing it out, and thank you so much for being a part of this conference so far. One last session to go. We'll see you in about an hour. Bye, everybody.